Welcome back live to Magny-Cours. The Eurosport Super Racing weekends continue. We are in the sunshine in the Midi of France, ready for the second Euro Super Touring race. And, of course, Gabriele Tarquini, who won the first race on, but no, not, of course, on pole position, because they reversed the finishing order of the first race to give us the grid for race 2. So Tarquini right towards the back, and only those who retired will start behind him. Well, among those, of course, are his teammate and the other Honda driver, Fabrice Valfish. Now, Nicola Lorini will start just ahead of him. Lorini, the championship points leader, ahead of his teammate and former champion, or last year's champion, Fabrizio Giovanardi. Massimo Poggioli's Audi and Roberto Colciaggio's Audi both ahead of Tarquini in the championship points, but Tarquini in 5th place in the points. Now let's go to the grid and catch up with the points leader and hear from Nicola Lorini. Eventually, hopefully. Here is Nicola in the car.
I'm ready when you are, Noel. Nicola, you'll be starting from near the back of the grid. What are your tactics for the race?
It's super easy. I want to improve my position in the starting grid and to be immediately in front.
Thank you, Nicola.
So Lorini will start ahead of Gabriele Tarquini by 1 spot on the grid. And here is the B-Bosch mascot, somewhere there in the dark, who is presenting the awards to a driver who was voted by journalists as the most amusing or inspirational figure in the previous weekend. Now, 4 starters from the pit lane who were damaged in the first race. Mikko Lempinen's Audi, Fabrice Valfish in the Honda will start, in fact, from pit road. So too will Matt Neal's Nissan Primera and Angelo Lanciolotti in his Alfa. Now, we didn't even see Matt Neal in that little highlight race edit you've just seen. Matt Neal, in fact, had an incident in the first 2 laps, in lap 2, and was nerfed off the circuit, damaging his steering. And Nissan Primera is the car that he raced last year in the British Touring Car Championship. And he has brought that out here to race in the European Series and testing the water. Perhaps we may see him in the Euro STC at Silverstone as well, and potentially for the greater part of the remainder of the season. Now, the car went very quickly indeed in qualifying yesterday. He'd never been to Magny-Cours before, but in the damp session he managed to get himself on top of the timesheets at times by 2 and 4 seconds as he made inspired tyre choices and then really hurled the car around. Unfortunately, as it's dried out, his lack of experience of this track, and particularly with regard to the setup of the car, hasn't helped him. They also have encountered a misfire in the Nissan, and they have been trying desperately to try and sort that one out as well between the 2 races. Whether they have done so or not, I think we will see when Matt leaves the pit lane behind the rest of the field. Well, at the front of the grid will be the final finishers. Gianluca Roda in his Opel Vectra and Sergio Sambattaro's Audi A4 Quattro. The final classified finisher of the first race was Romano Bernardoni, who crashed, as we saw in spectacular fashion, 2 laps from the end. Now, whether that Alfa will ever see action again, I am very much questioning. But whether they have a spare car or not, no, there is no Alfa on the front row of the grid. That is the black Opel Vectra of Gianluca Roda, who now takes up pole position, with Sergio Sambattara's red Audi A4 Quattro on the right-hand side. And incidentally, the Super Tours and Super Productions, with their standing starts using the right-hand side as the pole. The rolling start for the GTs, the left-hand side was pole, because from a rolling start, the inside line down into the first left-hand double kink is generally accepted to be the preferable one. Eric Cairol, who qualified very well indeed in the slippery conditions, starting further up the grid again, having dropped down during the race. But the Frenchman will probably not produce too much of a problem for the faster drivers to get by. And David, as they head off again on this warm-up lap, once more the reverse grid we saw at Monza and at Brno. It doesn't actually take the top stars in their top cars that long to get back through the field.
No, it doesn't. What we've seen so far in the races, is that it's taken them something like 2 to 3 laps to get themselves through from their finishing position in the first race back to the front of the grid. So on this circuit as well, it's quite a long way around, so I can see it taking just a shorter time. A few more hairpins in here, a few more chances for some door-to-door running, shall we say, or maybe even easing people out of the way. I spoke to Matt Neal after the first race, and he said as he got to the first corner, he got hit by somebody, and that knocked him off across the gravel trap and did some damage to the steering. So that retired him from the first race. He was also concerned about a misfire that he's had, and it seems to be getting worse. So whether they've been able to fix that misfire or not to get out of the second race, I'm not very sure. I got a funny feeling he's someone that we could see missing from this second race, and maybe not even starting out of the pit lane. We haven't seen a shot of who's actually in the pit lane at this moment in time, queuing up to come out there to see what's happening. Here we have the first of the Audis, which was very severely damaged in the side. You can see them trying to take a picture of where that big yellow sticker is. That was well pushed in the side there. Wallfish, who was in the gravel trap after spinning off. Matt Neal is there. They've managed to get the car running. I'm not sure what we've done to it to get it going, but there it is, up and running, cured that misfire, whatever it is. And the Alpha at the end, the last of the 4 cars to take out from the pit road.
Ready to go for the second Super Touring race of this Magny-Cours round of the Eurosport Super Racing Weekends. This is the 2.5-mile Formula One facility at Magny-Cours, the full Grand Prix track being used by these drivers. And, well, the stars at the back and the also-rans at the front, as we've seen this reversed grid format. And it's something new for the Super Touring drivers, at least. Gives them something else to think about in the second race. And hopefully for the fans, well, it stops the best guys just clearing off into the middle distance at the start and allows us to see whether they can overtake as well as just drive fast in a straight line, which is, I think, to rather downplay their obvious talents. But it does give them a little bit more to think about than if they were starting from the front of the grid. So the winner of the first race, almost last on the grid, Gabriele Tarquini. Just a couple of retirees behind him, and then those 4 cars starting from the pit lane. So the green flag being waved by the marshal at the back of the grid to show that everybody is assembled, and they shall get the 5-second board. Then the red lights will come on, and then after an undisclosed period, the red lights will go off, and it'll be go. Away they go, a short hold, and oh blimey, it's carnage. Gianluca De Lorenzi's orange and white BMW takes the lead. Immediately the front row starters getting away very, very slowly indeed. That looked like, whose is that? Audi. That's not Sambataro's Audi. There it is, but up into 3rd place already. That'll be Massimo Piccioli's Audi Quattro, I would think, the silver car. And now we will have to look a little further back and see what is happening with the Alphas and the Honda. And Tarquini has already taken a big step forward. Look at him there. The Alphas, David, still bottled up, and Tarquini's leapt ahead of that group of slower cars.
He really has. He made a fantastic start. He's up there at about 6th place.
Oh, and he's been hit! Unbelievable now. That was Larini surely coming down inside him.
It certainly was, and off goes, that's Tarquini's car, number 4.
Yeah, that was Tarquini on the curbs. Well, we're riding with Eric Queirol. But that is Gabriele Tarquini. The Spider-Man helmet shows that that's Tarquini, and he is out of the race at the first corner. And inside, was it the number 1 or the number 2 Alpha? I think it may have been the number 1 car, because the number 2 car of Larini came through behind. That's right. So that was Fabrizio Giovanardi, and there is Gio's car. Look at the damage on that. He will not be taking any part in this race. Now, you could be very sceptical indeed and say, well, that was just an unguided missile there to take out Tarquini. But at this stage of the season, where Giovanardi believes he's going to win the championship and it's not going to be Larini or Tarquini, I really don't think that that will have been an entirely vindictive and purposeful move. That was just getting it wrong.
And they certainly got it wrong in a very big way there. 2 cars, 2 top cars, just out on that one hairpin there to dive down the inside straight into it. And immediately behind we've seen another accident as well, which was one of the Audis running into the back of what I think was one of the Nissans. And there we are, that's the Audi that ran into one of the other cars, and they've hit it very hard indeed. Now I know the brakes on the Audi are very, very good indeed, so that looks like a bit of a driver area to run into another car just quite so hard.
Well, Sigarini was the driver of the Audi, and there is the 12 car. In fact, that was the other Audi. That was the one that started on the front row of the grid, Sergio Sambataro, but he got away so slowly. I'm not surprised that he got caught. We've just seen a change for the lead then. The orange and white car that was the leader after the first lap was Gianluca De Laurenti, and he's been passed by Roberto Colciaggio. Colciaggio was just ahead of Tarquini and Larini on the grid, and although the front-wheel drive cars usually get away fairly well, obviously nothing like as quickly as the Audi. Well, there is, it's all happening. Giovanardi is off there. He finally didn't make it back to the pits. We've just seen Valfish pushed off. This is what the cameras were picking up in the background, and this is the car that started, the Conrero Alfa that started from the pits. Surely that has got to be Angelo Lancialotti. No, it's the 10 car, not the 19 car, so that's Enrico Toccacello. Well, blimey, hard to keep up, really. They're all going off everywhere. And Tarquini, well, he's a very forgiving man by nature, but not normally immediately after an accident. Somebody else off there is still the 23 Audi, so the yellow flags are out, and I would be unsurprised if somebody decided in race control that there was enough garbage lying and gravel trapped close to the racing line to throw the red flag. Not at the moment, though. Colciaggio leads De Laurenti by 0.8 of a second. Eric Cairol in third place. Nicola Larini fourth. Massimo Piggioli fifth. And Toccacello in sixth place. Despite that flying off the road that we saw, obviously the straight line through the gravel there or across the concrete was the quicker of the lines. He's in sixth. Roda in seventh place, who started on the front of the grid in the Opel Vectra, which is, by anybody's standards, a really long-in-the-tooth race car. Then Sardelli in 8th, Matt Neal in 9th, Paolo Zadra in 10th, Angelo Lancialotti in 11th, and Fabrice Valfish back in 12th place. Well, Valfish, as we saw, bundled into a complete dead stop and probably stalled the engine, David, as well as that hairpin on the previous lap.
He looked as though he was trying to dive inside Matt Neal, and it just simply didn't work. Matt shut the door on him, and he came to an almost dead stop, and Matt carried on. We've seen the car, Valfish's car, just sitting there, not going anywhere. He was obviously got it going now, and he's somewhere out there, but not having a good day. These good guys, the guys that we expect to be up front, are having an absolutely disastrous time. The only one that's actually going anywhere at the moment is Larini, who's currently lying fourth. Absolutely,
Larini has had the luck of the Irish with him. I don't know what part of Italy he's from, but if it was just south of Dublin, I wouldn't be surprised to find out. Now, Eric Cairol, as I said earlier, very well in qualifying he'd done, because he knows this track well and because he's done a lot of French super touring driving. The BMW shouldn't really be much of a match for the Alfa, certainly not in dry conditions on as fast a track as this. And Eric Cairol, with no disrespect to him, is not Nicola Larini in terms of driving ability, but Larini should have caught and passed him by now. Colciaggio still leads, gap growing to De Laurenti now from 0.8 to 2.1 seconds. Third is Cairol, fourth is Larini. Oil flags or slippery surface flags, just to get it right for all our marshals who will be watching this. Slippery surface flags being shown there in those first two sweepers, the left and right hander. Well, starting to settle down a little at the front. Larini fourth, Piggioli's Audi fifth, Toccacello sixth in the best of the Conrero run Alfa 156s, the white cars. Then Gianluca Roda, Sardelli in 8th, Matt Neal still in 9th, but 0.3 of a second behind Sandro Sardelli, the other Nissan driver in the series. Determined that if he can't win, he's at least going to beat that other pesky Nissan right in front of him. On board with Cairol again. Can't see anything in his rear-view mirror from our onboard camera apart from his helmet, so we can't see how close Nicola Larini is. But he was 1.1 behind at the line, and if he's not catching, David, and I'm surprised at that. If anything, Cairol is catching the BMW ahead of him.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening. Look at the times from the last complete lap as they crossed the line. They did a time exactly identical at 1:45.8. So Cairol is up there, and he's trying very hard indeed. We've seen him qualify very, very well at the front row of the grid for the first race. And here we see a very despondent Tarquini walking back down the pit lane towards his team. How he's going to explain that yet another meeting has gone by where he's managed to finish only one race, and all these points he should be earning are disappearing from him, and the Alfa Romeos continue, especially Larini, continuing to rack up the points even further and further away from him.
Well, the Italian Yasport team that runs Michele's car, both his car and Fabrice Valfisch's, bearing Michele Alboreto helmet stickers. Of course, those of you who have kept up with motorsport news will know that the Italian was killed in a tragic testing accident for the Audi team in their Le Mans pre-race build-up last Wednesday, and was buried in his hometown on Friday. And the Yasport team, along with everybody else in the paddock, very much feeling again another tragic loss in the sports car racing world. And Tarquini and Valfisch's cars bearing the helmets stickers of Michele Alboreto as a mark of respect.
Gabriele, what happened this time?
I have a good start. I had a good start, no problem at the first corner. But braking, I was in the hairpin and somebody missed the brake, I think, for 50 or 60 meters. And he came into my door with a lot of speed, and he destroyed my car.
Thank you, Gabriele. Bad luck.
Well, I think the question said it all. Gabriele, what happened this time? As you say, 3 race meetings, 3 races, failed to finish. And, well, one of them, absolutely, he put his hand up and said, I just lost it on tyres. That was on Monza. But the other 2, well, certainly you could never accuse him of being the guilty party in that last incident. Now, Eric Cairol, the fastest man on the track at the moment, with by, well, 100th or 2 of a second, with the exception of Nicola Larini. But Cairol being really badly held up by Gianluca De Lorenzi, who was nearly 2 seconds slower on the previous lap. Larini is all over the back of him. And this is Larini's chance now, David, because with the 2 Frenchmen battling, or the 2 BMWs here battling, the Frenchman, the second of them, Larini has to get them both if he can, and get away from them and get up to Colciaggio fast.
Yeah, these 2 are really fighting at the moment. One's trying to hold the other one back, the other one's trying to get past, and they're slowing each other up quite dramatically. And that's allowed Larini to catch a pair of them up quite dramatically. So somewhere along the line, these 2 are going to make a mistake, maybe run into each other or just get it wrong somewhere. And Larini will take that opportunity to go past. But you can see in a straight line just how much quicker that Alfa is than the BMW. And he's simply motored right up beside him, although he's left himself on the outside going into this corner. So I don't think Larini will make it there. No, he doesn't. But the 2 BMWs side by side still battling. And these 2 are going to, I can see them coming to a sticky end like a lot of the cars at the beginning of this race.
Well, Cairol's really going to have his wits about him, because he knows that he's going to try everything he can to try and get past De Lorenzi, but he can't leave the door open anywhere. De Lorenzi misses the apex dreadfully on the left-hander. That's it. It's done, surely. Yes, Cairol gets through. De Lorenzi is wobbled all over the curbs and gets out of it, but now Nicola Larini is right with Eric Cairol, and Cairol is now going to have to defend for 7 laps. Or 6 after the end of this one, to try and hold on to second place. I don't suppose that is likely to be the result in the end. But at the moment, the fastest man on the track as a result of this is Roberto Colciaggio, the Audi driver, in the lead. Now he is, I'm sure, David, trying to get as many seconds between him and what else is going on behind as he can before the Audi finally eats its tyres.
Yeah, he knows from previous experience that the Alphas and the Hondas are generally quicker than him, so he needs to get that gap at the front early on, and he's pushing hard all the time to get out and get away from the rest of the pack. And the way things are going at the moment, even if Larini does get past Cairol, I've got a funny feeling he's going to struggle to catch all the way up to the Audi of Colciaggio, but he won't give up trying to get there.
Nicola Larini, Eric Cairol, the Italian veteran, the ex-Formula 1 driver, versus the French amateur, really, for all his racing experience and abilities. He finds his own money, runs his own cars, and Larini here in what is tantamount to a full factory Alfa Romeo, and in the end it shows Cairol has asked too much of the BMW, just 1 corner too many to try and keep the Alfa behind. And David, that I think indicates just how hard he was really pushing against the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, he was trying very hard there, and you can see when he came into the corner he was just going far too fast to turn in, and the back of the car came round and off he went in the gravel trap, and the minute it went in there bouncing like that, it was guaranteed to sink. And sure enough, it sank into the stones of the gravel trap, and there it stays. He stuck a gear to try and set off, and all it did was spin the wheels. Now he's going to be really upset about that. because you know, he had a really good chance of picking up the highest place young driver in this particular race, and he's thrown the whole thing away now just by trying too hard to keep Larini behind. It might have been better just to hand the thing over to Larini and make sure you finish on the podium and finish third. At the end of the day, you're here to try and win a championship, and a championship is about scoring points. And sitting in that gravel trap as he is at the moment, he's certainly going to be scoring no points in this race.
No, and a sorry end, unfortunately. This is the move he put in on Gianluca De Lorenzi to take second place. And De Lorenzi there, well, a bit of wobbling and bobbling, Rubbins racing, as they say in the States, and that was certainly racing in that context. He got through there, but in the end, a lap and a bit later, he just couldn't keep it under control ahead of Nicola Larini. Roberto Colciaggio is our race leader then, with 7 laps down. We're on lap 8 of 12. Larini in second place, 6.5 seconds back. And Gianluca De Lorenzi in third place. 6 seconds behind him is Massimo Piccioli. Matt Neal now past Sandro Sodeli and up into 5th place. The two Nissans 5th and 6th. Not seeing anything of them at the moment, but we go back to our race leader, Colciaggio. His last lap, 1:45.0. Larini's 1:45.5. And that because Larini was still, for most of that lap at least, held up behind the BMW of Eric Cairol. Cairol in the gravel and out of the race. Still the Audi leads, but for how long? The Alfa is chasing hard. Eurosport Live and Magny-Cours. This is the second race of the Euro STC at round 3 of the Eurosport Super Racing weekends. And here's our race leader by 6.5 seconds. Still Roberto Colciaggio leading from Nicola Larini. There's the Audi. Wait to see if you can see the Alfa Romeo in the background, and you can't. He is able to match Nicola Larini's time all but a tenth or so on the last couple of laps, since Nicola Larini has got past Eric Cairol. Gianluca De Lorenzi in third place is 2 seconds behind Larini now, which shows that Larini is now going quicker than he was when stuck behind the BMWs. But David Leslie still not able to reel in the four-wheel drive and heavier Audi Quattro at the rate that you might expect of an absolute top-flight front-drive car and driver combination in the dry.
Yes, every time we've seen them so far, they've been right up there, and they can reel them in like, you know, that they aren't there basically, and it's not happening here at Magny-Cours. I would only think that somewhere in all that fighting or falling over each other, running into each other that we've seen on the first 2 laps, that maybe Larini had some sort of damage done to his car, because certainly in the race meetings we've seen before, both at Monza and at Brno, they were able to just go straight through. But there we see Colciaggio's not giving up. He's trying so hard that he actually made a real mess of that corner and shot across the curb there. Very lucky not to hit one of the 2 big red bollards that are out there. We can see now a red and yellow striped flag being hung out. That tells you there's a slippery surface. For those older people, it would be known as the oil flag, but nowadays they've changed the name to slippery surface flag. So it could be that somebody's dropped some water or oil on the circuit, and therefore the grip's not as good as it was. But that wasn't a problem coming to the chicane before.
Well, there's Sardelli's Nissan, the flags there, perhaps also indicating the presence of a lot of gravel from the gravel traps or something like that. But Sardelli has gone off, and in replay we say it's at, well, that's the place where Eric Cairol made his move on Gianluca De Lorenzi. And that's is that 180? No, that's further around the track, but whatever, he's off in the gravel, firmly bedded in the gravel and in the tyre wall, and he's certainly not coming out of there, and just really lost it at pace. The 19 car of Mikko Lempänen from Finland, which started from the pit lane. That may well be the reason for the red and yellow striped flags, David, because he's smoking at the back, and it looks as though he may be trailing something around behind him as well, rather unthoughtfully of him.
It does look as though there's an engine problem there, certainly. Getting more and more smoke as they go around, and when there's an engine problem, there's usually some oil somewhere around. So it could be him that's brought out these oil flags or flags. There's another Audi. You can see that when
well,
they go off.
That's Piccioli, who's just gone by him, and I think he picked up some oil on the tyres there, probably.
You see the difference when they go off into the gravel trap. If they keep their foot hard into it, they can power their way back out with that four-wheel drive. And you've seen earlier on that same corner, I think it is where Sardelli went off. Yes, it is, and Sardelli just went off and continued to go off until he eventually hit the tyres at the far side. Big difference between a front-wheel drive car and a four-wheel drive car.
So there you see, when you play your Tuca Touring Cars game on the PlayStation, you really can drive out of gravel traps in a real Audi Quattro. It's that realistic. Fabrice Valfish in the remaining Honda Accord in 7th place and 1.3 seconds behind Roberto Toccacello. If he's trying to get the points for 6th, as I'm sure he will be, he can see Toccacello ahead and he's chasing him hard. Matt Neal now in 4th place, incidentally, in the Nissan, has just crossed the line 11 seconds behind Gianluca Di Lorenzi after 10 laps. 2 laps to go for Matt Neal to get a chance to get on the podium, and in the real world that's not likely. However, the way Roberto Colciaggio has been throwing the Audi around, and with Nicola Lorini catching him fast, then I'm not sure. Toccacello, Colciaggio rather, on the lap that we saw him skedaddle over the curbs, did a 1:46 to Lorini's 1:44. He's now done a 1:49 to Lorini's last lap of 1:47. So the two of them both 2 seconds a lap slower on that lap and more than the previous, in fact nearly 3 seconds each. I don't know quite what the reason for that would be. Gianluca Di Lorenzi is in 3rd, but out of this one he's 4 seconds behind Lorini. Matt Neal in 4th, as I said, 11 seconds behind Di Lorenzi. And then Pajoli's rally crossing gravel trapping Audi in 5th place, Fabrice Valfish in 6th.
Yeah, we're watching the lead car here, as we've seen earlier on the last lap. He's trying very, very hard, and he just managed to fall off across that curb. He did lose some time. He's lost best part of 2 seconds on the last lap, and certainly Lorini seems to be coming back towards him now that he's under pressure and making the mistakes. That was the corner he made the mistake at last time. This time he's got round it safely, so we'll see when they cross the line this time if they've managed to sort himself out and go back to driving properly and getting a good lap time rather than the poor lap time he had the time before.
3 seconds quicker, 1:46.6, not 1:49.6. And Lorini, 1:48.4. David, not only is he not catching him in clean traffic with no back markers, he lost 2 seconds there. Can it be potentially that because of the wet running, Lorini's Alpha is just not set up properly? We'll wait and see by the end of the race.
It's one of those things. I think Colciaggio was giving it just a little bit too much, trying too hard when he made the mistake and came off across that curb there, and that was what allowed Lorini to catch. There we can see the starter giving a signal 1 lap to go, so that's them just starting their last lap now, and here you can see that same signal. So they've got 1 lap to do it, and he's 4.7 seconds behind Lorini, behind Colciaggio. So unless Colciaggio makes a mistake, and we've seen that before, we've seen that earlier today, he made a mistake and went off, and we've seen it in this race also. He's already made a mistake and ended up cutting a corner. So there's nothing final about this race at the moment, not until they cross the line. So we'll have to wait and see if he can actually keep his head together and get it to the finish and not make any mistakes, rather than what's happened to him so far this weekend, in that trying so hard to get that four-wheel drive Audi up onto that top position and get that first win of the year.
Well, it'll be a well-deserved win if it comes to him here, and at the moment it looks as though it should do, and he really doesn't need to risk everything. Down through the final chicane, Lorini 5 seconds back, and the Alpha, well, they've had one dry race. Maybe he tried to go too far on settings to improve it for the second race. Whatever, the Alpha of Nicola Lorini was not the force that it should have been in this second race. That's taking nothing away from Roberto Colciaggio. A great start, very determined driving, way above the limits of the car on occasions, wins his first race of the year. Round 6 of the championship goes to Roberto Colciaggio and Audi, both scoring their first victory. And David, in dry conditions, when we think back about the race at the end of the year, we'll remember how wet it was, and we'll see Colciaggio's name at the top, and of course we'll say, well, of course he must have been the winner in the rain, but just dry weather and no advantage whatsoever there for the Audi, apart from first few seconds away from the line, and that certainly wasn't the story of the race here. Lorini second, Di Lorenzi third, Matt Neal halving the distance, not even halving it, cutting in 2 laps the gap to Di Lorenzi from 11.5 to 3.01 seconds. But one more lap, Matt Neal would have been on the podium. As it is his first visit to the Euro STC, he finishes 4th in the Nissan, Pajoli 5th in the second of the Audis, and in 6th position Fabrice Valfish in the Honda, with which he started from the pit lane. But the big story is that Nicola Lorini finishes twice, And for him, that's a very healthy point score. Gabriele Tarquini first and 0. And that is the real story of the weekend. Of course, Fabrizio Giovanardi, the other championship rival to Larini, let's not forget, out after that first lap crash with Tarquini, and he will score nothing here either. So Larini now, 3 of the 10 super racing weekends out of the way, already starting to look like the man who will get the favoured treatment and the assistance of his teammate in the Nord Auto Alpha team. 3 more races in, who can tell what will have happened? But at the moment, Nicola Larini is head and shoulders above the rest of them in terms of points, and you have to say in terms of luck in the races. So confirmation there of that result, and well, Colciaggio could hold off Larini in the end, and if you'd asked me that with 5 laps still to go, I would have said not a hope in hell, and he managed to do it. So congratulations to him. A very well judged race, a couple of little mistakes. He got away with both of them though by the skin of his teeth and held off. Matt Neal very strongly driven indeed into 4th place, so it looks as though they managed to get rid of that misfire that hindered them in the first lap. But there with the team, Roberto Colciaggio enjoying his moment of celebration. Well, Nicola Larini's car down there in the collecting area behind Roberto Colciaggio's, where it's been all race, but never that close. In fact, let's catch up with the Audi driver, our winner here at Magny-Cours.
Roberto, many congratulations. You had a great first lap there. It looked as though that really helped you win the race.
No, thank you. I make the fast start, and I wanted to have a more gap in the beginning. So, but after in the end, in the middle of the race, there is too much oil on the track. After another Audi broke the engine, so it was really difficult to drive. But in the end, I won, so I'm happy.
Thank you, Roberto. Well done.
Now what we really want to know is what happened to Nicola Larini's car. As we suspected, Lempinen's Audi leaving a trail of oil around the track, but that will have affected everybody equally. All right, a fraction more traction available for the 4-wheel drive car. But David, 4-wheel drive on oil or 2-wheel drive on oil, it's not much of a gamble really, is it? They're both off.
It isn't. Once you've got oil on the circuit, it doesn't matter how many wheel drives you've got. Once you hit it, you're going to slide whatever happens, and we've seen all the cars sliding around once you had this oil on there.
Well, let's catch up with Nicola Larini, see if we can find out what his story was. I think, as David suggested, perhaps a collision early on.
2nd place, congratulations. That's a very good result for you in terms of the championship.
It was really unbelievable driving. Was the racetrack was 90% with oil in the asphalt. It was impossible for me to drive. It was a worse condition that if it was raining compared to Audi. For me, it was impossible to drive and to try to keep him. 3 laps to the end, another car lose oil again. I said, okay, better to keep score point for the championship.
Thank you, Nicola.
Okay, so there you go from the horse's mouth. The slippery conditions, worse in fact than...
Score point for the championship.
Thank you, Nicola.
Okay, so there you go from the horse's mouth. The slippery conditions, worse in fact than we even anticipated, according to the Alpha driver. And well, we did see that he couldn't match Colciaggio's pace in the last couple of laps, and perhaps wisely so, looking for that championship at the end of the season. Well, we've dealt with the super touring cars here at Magny-Cours. Now it will be the turn of the super production drivers, and they will have to go out onto what, by the championship points leader's estimation, is a track that's more slippery than if it was soaking wet. Larini, the championship leader by 30 now over Fabrizio Giovanardi, his teammate, who failed to score well in race 1 and not at all in race 2. And down out of the top half dozen almost the instant he got back into the top half dozen of the points has gone Gabriele Tarquini. Taken out in the race. He was very unlucky not to finish there indeed. Well, we'll be back after this break with more action from Magny-Cours. The super production cars are ready on the grid. The skies are starting to look a little darker and threatening. The last thing they need now is a sprinkle of rain on this greasy track already at Magny-Cours. The Italians delighted at the moment with the way things have been going. We'll have to see if Italians once more rule the roost in the super production, or whether it is German efficiency, courtesy of the BMW 320s, that take to the fore once more. Join myself and David Leslie after this break. We'll see you in a minute.